Think history class was boring? That's because they hid the good stuff, the weird stuff. Tonight, we're cracking open the vault of historical WTF moments. 33 times the past went completely off script, leaving historians scratching their heads and us asking, seriously? Forget timelines. This is history's blooper reel, except the bloopers involved exploding whales and killer bunnies. Get ready. 1. The Exploding Whale of Oregon, 1970. 1970. Florence, Oregon. Problem: an 8-ton sperm whale decides your beach is the perfect place for its final, fragrant decomposition. The stench? Powerful enough to curdle milk 3 towns over. Solution? Obvious, right? Pack it with half a ton of dynamite. Yeah, half a ton. The Oregon Highway Division figured a controlled blast would vaporize the blubbery behemoth into bite-sized seagull snacks. Instead, K-boom! They created a chunky airborne whale smoothie. Massive hunks of rancid blubber rained down, flattening cars a quarter-mile away, sending spectators sprinting for cover under a sky full of calamari catastrophe. News reporters captured the glorious blubberpocalypse live. The official overseeing this masterstroke deadpanned. Well, I'm confident it would work, if we used more dynamite. Genius. The lesson apparently wasn't don't dynamite whales, but use more dynamite. Oregon, never change. 2. The Dancing Plague of 1518. Strasbourg, France. High summer, 1518. One woman, Frau Troffea, steps into the street and just starts dancing. No music, just frantic, non-stop movement. Compulsive. Within a week, dozens join her. Within a month, hundreds. Thrashing, spinning, day and night, for weeks. They weren't partying, they were dying. Exhaustion, strokes, heart attacks claimed dancers daily. Authorities, baffled, consulted physicians who diagnosed hot blood and prescribed, wait for it, more dancing. They literally built stages, hired musicians, thinking the afflicted could dance the fever out. Surprise! It made it worse, encouraging more to join the macabre rave. Mass hysteria? Ergot poisoning from rye bread causing hallucinations? A bizarre stress response? Nobody knows. But imagine a flash mob fueled by psychosis, ending not in applause, but in coffins. 3. Napoleon's Bunny Attack, 1807. Think Napoleon Bonaparte, military mastermind, conqueror of Europe. Now picture him routed, utterly defeated, by bunnies. 1807. Celebrating a treaty signing, Napoleon's chief of staff organized a grand rabbit hunt. He procured around 3,000 rabbits for the emperor's amusement. Minor detail, these weren't wild hares programmed for fear. They were tame bunnies, sourced from local farms, accustomed to humans meaning food. Instead of scattering, the fluffy horde charged. A relentless, furry wave swarmed Napoleon and his bewildered men, hopping onto their imperial boots, scrambling up their legs. The great general, veteran of Austerlitz, was forced into a tactical retreat, frantically batting bunnies away as his carriage fled the scene. History's most adorable and arguably most humiliating military defeat. Never underestimate a hungry rabbit with nothing to lose. 4. The Great Emu War, 1932. Australia, 1932. Post-World War I. Veterans-turned-farmers face a new enemy. Not drought, not locusts, but 20,000 giant flightless birds. Emus migrating en masse were decimating wheat crops in Western Australia. The farmers, many ex-soldiers, pleaded for help. The government's response? Deploy the actual army. Major G.P.W. Meredith led soldiers armed with Lewis machine guns against the feathered menace. The emus, however, proved to be feathered ninjas. They employed guerrilla tactics, splitting into small groups, dodging bullets with uncanny speed. Meredith lamented their surprising maneuverability, comparing them to Zulu warriors. After weeks of embarrassment, thousands of rounds fired, and minimal emu casualties, the military withdrew. The emus won, officially. Let that sink in. The Australian Army lost a war to birds. 5. The London Beer Flood, 1814. October 17, 1814. London's St Giles parish. A normal Monday until a massive brewing vat containing over 320,000 gallons of porter ruptures at the Mew & Company brewery. A 15-foot wave of dark, frothy beer crashed through the brewery walls and surged into the surrounding slum streets. Tenements crumbled, basements filled instantly. 8 people drowned in the sticky tide, mostly women and children trapped in collapsing homes. Rescue efforts were hampered by the sheer volume of booze and, reportedly, by locals scooping up free beer amidst the chaos. The brewery was taken to court, but acquitted. The flood deemed an act of God. An act of God involving catastrophic fermentation failure, maybe. The smell lingered for weeks. 6. The Cadaver Synod, 897. 9th century papal politics, where grudges don't just last a lifetime, they extend beyond the grave. Pope Stephen VI really hated his predecessor, Pope Formosus. So much so that in AD 97, he ordered Formosus's 9-month-old corpse dug up, dressed in full papal vestments, and propped onto a throne to stand trial. Stephen screamed accusations of perjury and canonical violations at the rotting body, while a terrified deacon hiding behind the corpse answered on its behalf. Shockingly, the deceased Formosus was found guilty. His papacy was annulled, his vestments stripped, his blessing fingers chopped off, and his body chucked into the Tiber River. Later fished out and reburied. Stephen VI? He was later imprisoned and strangled. Karma perhaps served colder than a corpse on trial. 7. The Tunguska event, 1908. Siberia, June 30th, 1908. Morning sky rips open. A colossal explosion, estimated at 10-15 megatons, think 1,000 Hiroshimas, flattens over 800 square miles of remote forest near the Podkamennaya Tunguska River. The shockwave circled the Earth twice. People were knocked off their feet hundreds of miles away. For nights afterward, skies across Europe and Asia glowed eerily bright. The weird part? No impact crater. None. The leading theory is a meteoroid or comet fragment exploding midair, several miles up. But that hasn't stopped wilder speculation. Tiny black hole? Alien spacecraft mishap? Nikola Tesla testing a death ray? Whatever it was, it left an apocalyptic footprint without leaving a hole. A cosmic calling card that still baffles science. 8. The Ghost Army of World War II. Imagine fighting ghosts. That's what the Nazis faced, thanks to the U.S. Army's 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. This top-secret unit, comprised of artists, designers, sound engineers, and actors, deployed inflatable tanks, fake planes, and phony artillery pieces across battlefields in France and Germany. They blasted recordings of troop movements and construction from giant speakers, created counterfeit radio traffic mimicking real divisions, and even staged fake headquarters. Their mission: deception on a grand scale, fooling the Germans about Allied troop strength and location. They impersonated units twice their size, drawing enemy fire and diverting divisions away from actual Allied offensives, saving an estimated 15,000 to 30,000 lives. Their existence remained classified for decades. War theater, literally. 9. The disappearance of the Sodder children, 1945. Christmas Eve, 1945, Fayetteville, West Virginia. A fire engulfs the Sodder family home. George and Jenny Sodder escape with 4 of their 9 children. The other 5, Maurice, Martha, Louis, Jenny, Betty, are trapped upstairs. The fire burns fiercely, the house collapses. But when the ashes cool, no remains are found. None. Vanished. The official explanation? The fire was hot enough to completely cremate the bodies. But George Sodder, a former firefighter, knew better. Strange occurrences followed. A phone call cut short, a ladder missing, sightings of the children years later, a cryptic photo mailed in the 60s allegedly showing an adult Louis. Was it arson? A kidnapping linked to George's outspoken criticism of Mussolini? The family maintained a billboard appealing for information for decades. 5 children seemingly erased by fire, leaving only questions smoldering. 10. The Boston molasses disaster, 1919. January 15, 1919. A bizarrely warm day in Boston's North End. Suddenly, a massive storage tank containing 2.3 million gallons of crude molasses erupts. Rivets popped like champagne corks. A wave of sticky goo, estimated at 25 feet high and moving at 35 miles per hour, surged through the streets. Buildings were crushed, trolley cars derailed, horses suffocated. 21 people died, 150 injured. The cleanup was epic. The harbor ran brown for weeks. Locals claimed that on hot summer days, the faint, sweet smell of molasses lingered for decades. The disaster led to class action lawsuits and stricter industrial safety standards. Proof that even something as innocuous as molasses can become a deadly, sticky tsunami. 11. The Trial of the Pigs, 1386. Medieval France. Where justice wasn't just for humans. In Falaise, 1386, a pig was formally arrested, imprisoned, and put on trial for fatally attacking an infant. Dressed in human clothes, a waistcoat and gloves, reportedly, the pig stood before the court. Witnesses testified. A defense lawyer was likely appointed. The pig was found guilty. The sentence? Public execution by hanging in the town square, carried out with full legal ceremony. Animal trials were a thing, reflecting a belief that all creatures were subject to God's law and human justice. Still, imagining a pig appealing its sentence is peak historical absurdity. Oink if you're guilty. 12. The Day It Rained. Meat, 1876. Bath County, Kentucky, March 3, 1876. Forget cats and dogs. It rained meat. For several minutes, chunks of what appeared to be raw flesh, described as 2 to 4 inches square, fell from a clear sky over a small area near Olympia Springs. Theories abounded. Divine intervention? A prank? Scientists analyzing samples suggested lung tissue, possibly from a horse, or maybe even a human infant. The most plausible, yet still weird explanation eventually settled on. A large flock of vultures disgorging their recent meal simultaneously while flying overhead. Imagine looking up to see that. Makes you appreciate a simple drizzle. 13. Operation Paul Bunyan, 1976. The Korean Demilitarized Zone. Tense, always. August 18, 1976. 2 U.S. Army officers trimming a poplar tree, blocking the view between checkpoints, are brutally axed to death by North Korean soldiers. The response? Not diplomacy. Overkill. 3 days later, the U.S. launched Operation Paul Bunyan. A massive force, B-52 bombers, F-4 fighters, helicopters, Cobra gunships, hundreds of heavily armed troops, engineers with chainsaws, descended on the DMZ with one mission: cut down that one tree. The North Koreans watched, stunned, mobilized their own troops but didn't interfere. The tree came down. A multi-million-dollar, highly coordinated, heavily armed landscaping operation to avenge 2 deaths and assert dominance over foliage. Peak Cold War absurdity. 14. The Eerie Canal. Mule Parade disaster, 1825. The grand opening of the Eerie Canal. A triumph of American engineering. Let's celebrate with a mule parade. October 26, 1825, Lockport, New York. Organizers thought showcasing the hard-working canal mules would be symbolic. Instead, the mules, utterly terrified by the cannons firing, cheering crowds, and general celebratory mayhem, collectively lost their minds. They bolted, stampeded through the streets, overturned wagons, trampled onlookers, and generally created chaos. The symbol of progress turned into a demonstration of mule-driven anarchy. The canal itself was a success, but the opening ceremony? Less triumphant procession, more running from angry ungulates. 15. The Pharaoh's mummy takes a flight, 1974. Even ancient royalty needs travel documents. When the deteriorating mummy of Pharaoh Ramses II needed urgent restoration work in Paris in 1974, Egyptian authorities faced a bureaucratic hurdle. French law required anyone entering the country, living or dead, to have a passport. Solution? Issue. Ramses II, an official Egyptian passport. Occupation listed, king, deceased. Upon arrival at Le Bourget Airport, the 3,000-year-old pharaoh was greeted with full military honors, befitting a visiting head of state. Imagine the customs declaration. Anything to declare? Just my sarcophagus and a slight case of millennia-old dust. History meets red tape. 16. The Curse of Timur's Tomb, 1941. Samarkand, Uzbekistan, June 1941. Soviet anthropologists, led by Mikhail Gerasimov, decide to exhume the body of Timur, the fearsome 14th-century Turco-Mongol conqueror, also known as Tamerlane. Locals warned against it, citing a curse inscribed on his tomb. Whomsoever opens my tomb shall unleash an invader more terrible than I. The scientists scoffed, opened the sarcophagus on June 20th. 2 days later, June 22nd, 1941, Nazi Germany launched Operation Barbarossa, the massive invasion of the Soviet Union. Coincidence? Maybe. But when Timur's remains were reinterred with full Islamic rites in November 1942, the Soviets achieved their decisive victory at Stalingrad shortly after. Makes you think twice about ignoring ancient warnings, doesn't it? 17. The Antikythera mechanism. An ancient computer. Circa 100 BC. Somewhere in the Mediterranean, a Roman ship sinks off the coast of the Greek island Antikythera. Fast forward to 1901. Sponge divers discover the wreck. Among the artifacts pulled up is a corroded lump of bronze containing intricate gears. Decades of study revealed the Antikythera mechanism, an astonishingly complex analog computer. This shoebox-sized device could predict astronomical positions, eclipses, even the 4-year cycle of the Olympic Games. Its sophistication wouldn't be matched for over 1,000 years. Who built it? How? Was it a one-off marvel, or a glimpse of lost ancient technological heights? It's like finding an iPhone buried at Stonehenge. Mind blown. 18. The Great Potato War, 1778. War of the Bavarian Succession. Sounds grand, right? Wrong. History remembers it better as the Kartoffelkrieg, the Potato War. Prussia versus Austria, fighting over who gets to inherit Bavaria. Except, there wasn't much actual fighting. Both armies spent most of their time maneuvering through Bohemia, trying to cut off each other's supply lines and, more importantly, raiding the enemy's food caches, particularly potatoes. Soldiers literally spent more time digging up spuds than firing muskets. It was a bizarre, low-casualty conflict where military strategy apparently involved advanced potato pilfering techniques. Frederick the Great himself was reportedly more concerned with securing potato fields than battlefields. Priorities. 19. The Disappearing Crew of the Mary Celeste, 1872. The Ultimate Ghost Ship Story, December 5th, 1872. The British brigantine Dea Gradia finds the American merchant ship Mary Celeste adrift and deserted in the Atlantic, midway between the Azores and Portugal. Sails partly set, cargo of denatured alcohol intact, ship seaworthy, plenty of food and water. Personal belongings of the captain, his wife, their 2-year-old daughter, and the 7 crewmen. Still in their cabins. The ship's logbook's last entry? 9 days earlier, noting their position. The lifeboat? Missing. What happened? Pirates, mutiny, Kraken attack, waterspout, foul play involving the volatile cargo fumes? Theories abound, none proven. 10 souls simply vanished from a perfectly sound ship, leaving behind an eerie maritime mystery that sails on. 20. The Battle of Karansebes, 1788. Possibly the most epic fail in military history. The Austro-Turkish War. September 21st, 1788. An advance guard of the Austrian army sets up camp near Karansebes, modern-day Romania. Some hussars buy schnapps from local gypsies. Infantry arrives, wants a share. Drunken argument escalates. Shots are fired. Chaos erupts. Different units, speaking different languages, mistake each other for Turks in the dark. Officers shout, "Halt!" which sounds like Allah to some soldiers. Panic spreads like wildfire. The army essentially attacks itself all night long. By morning, thousands are dead or wounded. When the actual Ottoman army arrived 2 days later, they found the Austrians already defeated by themselves. Friendly fire doesn't get friendlier or more tragically stupid than this. 21. The Mystery of Green Children of Woolpit, 12th century. Woolpit, Suffolk, England. Sometime in the 12th century, during harvest time, villagers discover two children, a boy and a girl, wandering near a wolf pit. Their skin? A distinct green hue. Their clothes? Unfamiliar material. Their language? Unintelligible. They refused all food except raw broad beans. Eventually, they adapted, learned English, lost their green pallor mostly. The boy grew sick and died. The girl, later baptized Agnes, explained they came from St. Martin's Land, an underground world of perpetual twilight where everyone was green. Were they lost Flemish orphans, aliens, fairies, residents of a hollow earth? Medieval chroniclers recorded the tale seriously. Green skin and beans, history's weirdest refugees. 22. The Great Stink of London, 1858. Imagine a summer so hot, the city's main river literally cooks into a steaming cesspool of raw sewage and industrial waste. Welcome to London, July and August, 1858. The Thames, overloaded with centuries of filth, fermented under the relentless sun. The stench, the Great Stink, was overpowering, unbearable. Parliament debated fleeing the city. Curtains soaked in chloride of lime hung in the House of Commons to mask the gag-inducing odor. Disease ran rampant. The crisis finally forced Parliament to fund Joseph Bazalgette's ambitious modern sewer system. Sometimes, progress only happens when the alternative is literally suffocating in your own crap. Smell that? It's the scent of infrastructure investment. 23. The Man Who Survived Two Atomic Bombs, 1945. Tsutomu Yamaguchi, an engineer for Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, August 6, 1945. He's on a business trip in Hiroshima, sees a B-29 overhead. Then, the flash, peak of dawn. He's thrown into a potato patch, eardrums ruptured, temporarily blinded, badly burned. Miraculously survives. Bandages himself up, spends a night in an air raid shelter. Next day, drags himself onto a train back home, to Nagasaki. Arrives August 8th, reports for work August 9th, explaining the Hiroshima bombing to his skeptical boss. Then, the second flash. He survives again. Officially recognized by Japan as a twice-bombed person, lived to be 93, advocating for nuclear abolition. Talk about beating the odds. Twice, in the worst possible lottery. 24. The Mystery of Oak Island. Nova Scotia, Canada. A small island hiding a giant riddle. Since 1795, treasure hunters have obsessed over the Money Pit, a deep, elaborately constructed shaft filled with layers of logs, charcoal, putty, and rumored booby traps like flood tunnels connected to the sea. What's down there? Pirate treasure? Knights Templar loot? The Holy Grail? Shakespeare's manuscripts? Francis Bacon's secrets? Theories are wild. 6 people have died searching. Millions spent digging, drilling, pumping. They've found coconut fiber, parchment fragments, human bones, weird inscriptions. But the main treasure? Elusive. Oak Island is either the site of the world's greatest hidden treasure or history's most expensive, deadly sinkhole obsession. The digging continues. Of course, it does. 25. The Great Cheese Wheel Escape, 1835. Picture it. A bustling cheese festival in charming Athens, Vermont, 1835. Pride of place. A colossal wheel of cheddar, reportedly weighing several hundred pounds. A true dairy behemoth. Mid-celebration, disaster. The cheese breaks free from its display, possibly due to uneven ground or overzealous admirers. It begins rolling, gaining momentum down the town's main thoroughfare. Panic ensues. Market stalls are flattened. Townsfolk leap for safety. The great cheese careens onward, a runaway dairy juggernaut, before finally plunging into a muddy ditch. Relief washes over the town, mingled with the scent of aged cheddar. The incident entered local folklore, proving that sometimes the main attraction literally makes a run for it. 26. The Eiffel Tower's secret apartment, 1889. When Gustave Eiffel unveiled his controversial iron lattice tower for the Paris Exposition, he included a little perk for himself, a private apartment near the summit. Not a sprawling penthouse, but a cozy, lavishly furnished nook over 1,000 feet above the city. It boasted wallpaper, wooden cabinets, a grand piano, and early scientific equipment. Eiffel used it to entertain guests like Thomas Edison, conduct meteorological observations, and presumably just enjoy the unparalleled view, far above the critics who called his tower monstrous. Parisian high society buzzed with envy, offering fortunes for just one night stay. Eiffel refused all offers. Some perks of genius are non-negotiable. Today, restored, it offers a peek into the engineer's private sky-high world. 27. The War of Jenkins' Ear, 1739. International conflicts usually start over land, resources, or ideology. This one, it started over an ear. Specifically the severed ear of one British merchant captain, Robert Jenkins. In 1731, Spanish Coast Guards boarded his ship off Florida, accused him of smuggling, and sliced off his ear as a warning. 7 years later, Jenkins dramatically presented the pickled ear to the British Parliament, whipping up anti-Spanish fury. War was declared in 1739. Battles raged across the Caribbean and Georgia for years, all because of one unfortunate earlobe and a whole lot of imperial rivalry. Makes you wonder what other body parts have secretly influenced geopolitics. 28. The Tanganyika laughter epidemic, 1962. Proof that sometimes laughter isn't the best medicine. January 30th, 1962, Kashasha, Tanganyika, now Tanzania. 3 schoolgirls at a boarding school start giggling. It spreads and spreads. Uncontrollable fits of laughter, punctuated by crying, restlessness, sometimes pain. Within weeks, 95 of the 159 students are affected. The school is forced to close. The epidemic spreads to nearby villages as students return home, lasting for months, affecting over 1,000 people, closing 14 schools in total. What caused it? Mass psychogenic illness? Stress reaction? A bizarre virus? Doctors were stumped. The laughter eventually faded, leaving behind one of history's most baffling and strangely unsettling outbreaks. Imagine being unable to stop laughing, even when it hurts. 29. The Berners Street Hoax, 1810. London, November 27, 1810. Mrs. Tottenham, living at 54 Berners Street, has a very, very bad day. Why? Because prankster Theodore Hook made a bet he could make any house in London the most talked about address within a week. His method? Sending out thousands of letters, all requesting deliveries and services to Mrs. Tottenham's address on the same day. Coal deliveries, wedding cakes, pianos, doctors, lawyers, priests, chimney sweeps, fishmongers, dignitaries including the Lord Mayor of London, the Governor of the Bank of England, even the Duke of York, all converged on the quiet residential street. Gridlock ensued. Chaos reigned. Hook watched the mayhem unfold from a nearby window, winning his bet. Possibly the greatest in real-life troll in history. 30. The Great Moon Hoax, 1835. Before Photoshop, there was just really convincing writing. August 1835, the New York Sun newspaper published a series of 6 articles supposedly reprinted from the Edinburgh Journal of Science, detailing sensational astronomical discoveries made by Sir John Herschel using a revolutionary new telescope. The articles described life on the moon, lush forests, oceans, bison-like creatures, blue unicorns, and most famously, winged humanoids called Vespertilio Homo or Batmen, living in pastoral harmony. The public went wild. Circulation soared. It was all, of course, a complete fabrication. The Sun later admitted the hoax, blaming the supposed author. The incident highlighted the power of sensationalist media and the public's willingness to believe the extraordinary. Batmen on the moon. Why not? 31. Balloonfest. 86. Cleveland. Sometimes good intentions pave the road to environmental disaster. And surreal visuals. September 27, 1986. Cleveland, Ohio aims for a world record and a feel-good fundraising spectacle. United Way releases almost 1.5 million helium balloons simultaneously downtown. The sight was initially breathtaking. Then, a cold front moved in. Rain forced the balloons downward, blanketing the city, Lake Erie, and surrounding areas in a sea of slowly deflating latex. It interfered with Coast Guard rescue helicopters searching for two missing boaters who were later found drowned, clogged waterways, spooked horses, and caused general chaos. The world record was set, but Balloonfest became a notorious example of a public relations stunt gone spectacularly, tragically wrong. 32. The Year Without a Summer, 1816. Imagine July snowstorms in New England. That was 1816, the year without a summer. Caused by the massive 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora in Indonesia, the largest volcanic eruption in recorded history, which spewed enormous amounts of volcanic ash into the stratosphere, dimming sunlight globally. Europe and North America experienced bizarrely cold summer weather, leading to widespread crop failures, food shortages, riots, and famine. Killjoys reported frost in Virginia in August. It spurred westward expansion in the U.S. as farmers sought better climates. Mary Shelley, stuck indoors during a gloomy Swiss vacation that summer, wrote Frankenstein. Even climate catastrophes have silver linings, apparently, or, literary masterpieces born of boredom. 33. St Scholastica Day Riot, 1355. Oxford, England, February 10th, 1355. Town versus gown tensions explode. Over bad wine. Two university students complained about the quality of wine served at the Swindlestock Tavern. Words were exchanged. Wine was thrown. Then fists. Soon, townsfolk armed with bows and arrows battled scholars, armed with, probably books and entitlement. The fighting raged for 3 days. Dozens were killed, mostly scholars. The aftermath? The king intervened, siding heavily with the university. For the next 470 years, the mayor and town officials had to annually march barefoot through the city streets and pay a fine of 1 penny for every scholar killed. All because someone dissed the tavern's vintage. Never underestimate the fury of a student denied decent booze. 33 dives into the historical deep end, where reality forgot its meds. Events so bizarre, they make fiction look predictable. Which one of these completely shattered your understanding of the past? Which story makes you want to build a time machine just to go back and yell, "Are you serious?" Spill your favorite absurdity in the comments below. And if you think history is just boring dates and names, hit that subscribe button, because we're just getting started peeling back the layers of glorious, baffling weirdness. You won't believe what we dig up next.